May Jesus and Mary be loved by all hearts. I am pleased to offer you, through the assistance of talented Theotokan friends, the finest, absolutely most accurate, meticulous English translation of the definitive account of the apparition of LaSalette, which Melanie's protector and confessor, the saintly Bishop Zola, published in 1879 from his diocese, with his imprimatur and with the blessing of Pope Leo XIII. Today's episode will be an audio reading so that you can meditate often on this great Marian event, even when you don't have the leisure to sit down with a book. I am uploading this reading on YouTube in January 2024. I hope that our English translation of Father René Laurentin's monumental work on LaSalette will be published before Easter. We are in the final editing phase, and it will be released in paperback and audiobook. Father Laurentin will explain the reasons for the diverging editions of The Secret of LaSalette and how Melanie's original text, written in her own hand for Pius IX in 1851, was discovered in the Vatican archives in 1998. Father Laurentin's book has been virtually unknown beyond French-speaking Catholics who didn't celebrate it or purchase many copies, perhaps because so few practice the faith at all. The first French edition has not been exhausted, but I am certain that tens of thousands of Catholics in the United States will welcome it with great interest because the faith is very much alive in this nation. And more than half the viewers on this Marian News channel live outside the USA. Although English is the native tongue of only a dozen countries in the world, it is widely spoken or studied as a second language of more than 90 countries. What I'm about to read for you is known as the Lecce booklet because Salvatore Zola was bishop of the diocese of Lecce in Italy. Several years ago, in consultation with my French-speaking friends, I published a small booklet and sold it at cost and also gave it away in digital format. It is still quite accurate. We've only tweaked it a bit over the years. My friends at a Catholic bookshop in New Orleans will mail you a copy, or you can download the digital book. Information is in the description box below. That booklet has the addition of the Rule of LaSalette, the Site, and Maximin's short version of The Secret. Those three elements are not present in the Lecce booklet. In 1879, Maximin was dead, and Melanie did not own a copy of his text. She was hesitant to disclose the rule and the site of members of the new order engaging in apostolic works because she felt the rule was something for the future. Did she imagine it was 150 years in the future? Happily, the time has come. If you or your friend might have a religious vocation, please contact me in Wisconsin. Again, refer to the description box below. All right, now for the audio edition of the Apparition of LaSalette, including The Secret, published by Melanie and Bishop Zola in 1879. And by the way, I don't have any control over the advertisements that YouTube puts before you. I'm just grateful it's a free platform. Version 8, the definitive version of Lecce, 1878 to 1879. At Castellamare on the 21st of November, 1878, 11 years after the 1866 detailed account of Maximin, see above, Melanie recorded her personal version, taking great care to relate the apparition in detail. In this 1866 account, Maximin had not included anything about the secret. But now, at the point of the story where the Virgin gives her the secret, Melanie transcribes it in full, making the text of Marseille complete in its definitive form. Then, in Lecce, with the imprimatur of Bishop Zola, on the 15th of November, she published the testimony. In 1904, the year of her death, before leaving France, she will republish this booklet. In France, this testimony, because of its polished style, would be denounced as a subjective extrapolation of Melanie, the fruit of a Copernican, egocentric revolution. but the major themes, reputedly novel, can already be found in the earlier versions. Like Maximin in his later years, the seer remains passionate about the vision which had delighted her and which no one else would be able to express in her place. In addition to the sections of the text which are numbered by Melanie, Roman numerals, we have added subtitles centered in parentheses and printed in italics the additional texts that do not appear in the Marseille version. Here is the text with the title given by the seer. Note for the 2024 English edition. All the words of the Blessed Mother have been italicized, making no distinction between the Marseille and Lecce texts, or the French or the Patois. The Holy Virgin began her discourse in French. When Melanie had difficulty understanding the French word for potatoes, Our Lady changed to the local Patois, Dauphinois, a subdialect of the Occitan, Alpine, Provençal dialect, more Italian than French. For the secret and the rule, Melanie states in the Lecce text that these were given in French, although much of the secret seems to have been transmitted more by an apocalyptic vision than by words. After this section, Our Lady resumed in patois until the very end, when she admonished in French that the message be made known. Paragraph numbering had been introduced to the Lecce text by commentators before 1907, according to Leon Bloy, but not reproduced in the French edition of Découverte. Paragraph numbering has been inserted in the English edition to facilitate study. So her official version begins. The apparition of the Holy Virgin on the mountain of LaSalette on September 19, 1846. Section 1. The two shepherds meet one another. On the 18th of September, 1846, the eve of the holy apparition of the Blessed Virgin, I was alone, as usual, watching over my master's cows. Towards 11 o'clock in the morning, I saw coming towards me a little boy. I took fright at this, for it seems to me that everyone ought to know that I avoided any sort of company. This child came up to me and said, "Little girl, I'm coming with you. I am from Corps too." At these words, my unpleasant nature displayed itself, and taking a few steps backwards, I said to him, "I don't want anybody around. I want to be alone." But this child followed me, saying, "Please let me stay with you. My master told me to come and watch over my cows together with yours. I'm from Corps." I walked away from him, gesturing to him that I didn't want anyone near me, and having gone away, I sat down on the grass. There I talked with the little flowers of the good God. A moment later, I looked behind me and found Maximin sitting next to me. He immediately said to me, "Keep me with you. I'll be good." But my bad nature would not hear reason. I jumped to my feet and ran away a little further off without saying anything to him, and again I started playing with the little flowers of the good God. In an instant, Maximin was there again, telling me that he would be very good, that he wouldn't talk, that he would get bored all by himself, that his master had sent him to be with me, etc. This time I took pity. I gestured to him to sit down, and I kept on playing with the little flowers of the good God. It wasn't long before Maximin broke the silence by bursting into laughter. I thought he was making fun of me. I looked at him, and he said to me, "Let's have some fun. Let's make up a game." I said nothing in reply, for I was so ignorant I didn't understand what games with other people were, always having been alone. I continued playing with the flowers, and Maximin came right up close to me, doing nothing but laughing, telling me that flowers didn't have ears to hear, and that we should play together instead. But I had no liking for the game he suggested that we play. Meanwhile, I began to converse with him. He told me that the 10 days he was to spend with his master would soon be over, and then he would go home to his father in Corps, etc. While he was talking, the bell of LaSalette started ringing. It was the Angelus. I gestured to Maximin to raise his soul to God. He took off his hat and was silent for a moment. Then I said, "Do you want to eat lunch?" "Yes," he replied. "Let's start." We sat down, and I brought out of my bag the provisions my masters had given me, and as was my custom, before breaking into my little round loaf, I made a cross in the bread with the point of my knife, and a little hole in the middle, saying, "If the devil's in there, may he come out, and if the good God is in there, may he stay in." and quickly, I covered the little hole. Maximin burst into loud laughter and kicked the loaf out of my hands. It rolled down the mountainside and was lost from sight. I had another piece of bread, which we shared. Then we played a game. Then, realizing that Maximin was still hungry, I pointed out a place on the mountainside covered with all kinds of berries. I urged him to go and eat some, and he went straight away. He ate some berries and brought back his hat filled with them. In the evening, we walked back down the mountain together, and we promised each other to come back to keep our cows together. The second meeting, the day of the apparition. The next day, September 19th, I met Maximin on the way up. We climbed the mountain together. I thought that Maximin was very good, very straightforward, and would willingly talk about what I wanted to talk about. He was also very flexible and had no fixed opinions. He was just a bit curious, for when I walked off away from him, as soon as he saw that I had stopped, he would run over quickly to me to see what I was doing and hear what I was saying to the flowers of the good God. And if he arrived too late, he would ask me what I had said. Maximin asked me to teach him a game. It was already late morning. I told him to gather some flowers to make the paradise. We both set to work. Soon we had quite a few flowers of various colors. I could hear the village angelus ringing, for the weather was fine without a cloud in the sky. Having said to the good God what prayers we had learned, I said to Maximin that we ought to drive our cows onto a small plateau near the ravine, where there would be stones with which to build the paradise. We led our cows to the designated spot, and then we had our little meal. Next, we started collecting stones to build our little house, which comprised a ground floor, which was, so to speak, our living room, and then a floor above, which was to be, according to us, paradise. This floor was all decorated with flowers of different colors, made into wreaths, held together with flower stems. This paradise was covered by a single large stone on which we strew flowers. We had also hung wreaths all around it. Once the paradise was finished, we gazed upon it. We became sleepy. We took a couple steps backwards from there, then fell asleep on the grass. The beautiful lady seated herself upon our paradise, and it did not break down. Section 2, the debut of the apparition. Waking up and not seeing the cows, I called to Maximin as I walked up the little hill. From there, I could see that our cows were grazing peacefully. I was on my way down while Maximin was on his way up, when suddenly I saw a beautiful light shining more brightly than the sun, and I could only just manage to utter, "Maximin, do you see, over there? Oh, my God!" At the same moment, I dropped the stick I was holding. I can't explain all the beautiful things that happened inside of me during that moment, but I felt drawn to the lady with a tremendous respect, full of love, and my heart beat so quickly that I thought it would burst from within me. I kept my eyes firmly fixed on this light, which was motionless. Then, as though it had opened up, I saw another light, much brighter and moving, and in this light I saw a most beautiful lady sitting on top of our paradise, with her head in her hands. This beautiful lady stood up. She partially crossed her arms while looking at us, and said to us, "Draw near, my children, fear not. I am here to proclaim to you great news." These soft, sweet words made me fly to her, and my heart would have wished to attach itself to her forever. When we drew close to the beautiful lady, standing in front of her to her right, she began to speak, and from her beautiful eyes tears also started to flow. "If my people will not repent, I will be compelled to let go of the hand of my son. It is so heavy and weighs me down so much I can no longer keep hold of it. For how long a time I have suffered for the rest of you. If I do not want my son to abandon you, I must take it upon myself to entreat him incessantly. And the rest of you, you think little of this. No matter how much you pray, how much you do, you will never be able to repay the suffering I have taken on for you. I gave you 6 days for work. I kept the 7th for myself, and no one wishes to grant it to me. This is what weighs down so much the arm of my son. Those who drive carts cannot speak without putting the name of my son in the middle. These are the 2 things which weigh down so much the arm of my son. If the harvest is spoiled, it is because of the rest of you. I made you see this last year with the potatoes. You took little account of this. On the contrary, when you found spoiled potatoes, you cursed, and you included the name of my son. They will continue to go bad. By Christmas, there will be none left. At this point, I was trying to interpret the word potatoes, pomme de terre in French. I thought I understood it to be apples. The beautiful and good lady reading my thoughts started again in this way. You do not understand, my children? I will tell it to you another way. So her discourse begins in patois. If the harvest is spoiled, it is because of the rest of you. I made you see this last year with the potatoes. You took little account of this. On the contrary, when you found spoiled potatoes, you cursed, and you included the name of my son. They will continue to go bad. By Christmas, there will be none left. If you have wheat, don't sow it. Whatever you sow, the creatures will eat it, and whatever comes will fall to dust when you thresh it. A great famine will come. Before the famine comes, children under the age of 7 will begin to tremble and will die in the arms of those who hold them. Others will do penance through hunger. The nuts will go bad. The grapes will rot. At this point, I was enthralled with the lady's beauty. I ceased to hear her for a time. Nevertheless, I saw that she continued to move her lovely lips as though speaking. Maximin was receiving his secret. Then turning to me again, the most blessed Virgin spoke to me and gave me a secret in French. This secret, just as she gave it to me, follows in its entire form. Section 3, the complete version of the secret. I will read the paragraph numbers. 1. Melanie, what I am about to tell you now will not always be secret. You can publish it in 58. Subheader, the underlying cause of the misfortunes, the unworthiness of the ministers. 2. The priests, ministers of my son, by their wicked manner of life, by their irreverence and impiety in celebrating the holy mysteries, by their love of money, honor, and pleasures, priests have become cesspools of impurity. Yes, the sins of priests cry out for vengeance, and vengeance looms over their heads. Woe to these priests and persons consecrated to God, who by their infidelity and wicked lives are crucifying my son again. The sins of those consecrated to God scream to heaven and call for vengeance, and behold, vengeance is at the door. Since there is no longer anyone to implore mercy and forgiveness for the people, there are no more generous souls, no one worthy anymore to offer the unblemished victim to the Eternal on behalf of the world. 3. God will strike in an unprecedented manner. 4. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth. God will exhaust his wrath, and no one will be able to escape from so many transgressions. Some editions include ellipses here. 5. The heads, the leaders of God's people, have neglected prayer and penance, and the demon has obscured their minds. They have become those roving stars that the old devil will drag with his tail in order to cause them to perish. God will permit the old serpent to cause strife among the rulers, among all social bodies, and in every family. There will be physical and moral suffering. God will leave people to themselves and will send chastisements that will succeed one after another for more than 35 years. 6. Society is on the threshold of the most terrible calamities and of the greatest events. Each should prepare to be governed by an iron rod and to drink the chalice of the wrath of God. Subheader, a warning for the Pope, apostasy, and war. 7. May the vicar of my son, the Supreme Pontiff, Pius IX, remain in Rome after the year 59. May he be firm and generous. May he fight with the weapons of faith and love. I will be with him. 8. Let him be wary of Napoleon. He is double-hearted, as one who wishes to make himself pope as well as emperor. God will soon withdraw from him. He is like an eagle who, always wanting to soar higher, will fall upon the sword that he was using to force the people to exalt him. 9. Italy will be punished for her ambition in wanting to shake off the yoke of the Lord of Lords. Hence she will be handed over to war. Blood will flow on all sides. Churches will be closed or desecrated. Priests and religious will be driven out. They will be put to death, and to a cruel death. Some will abandon the faith, and the number of priests and religious who will separate from the true religion will be enormous. Among these, there will even be bishops. 10. Let the Pope beware of those who perform marvels, for the time will come when the most astounding prodigies will take place on the ground and in the air. 11. In the year 64, Lucifer with a great number of demons will be unleashed from hell. They will abolish faith little by little, even in those consecrated to God. They will blind them in such a way that unless there is a special grace, these persons will take on the spirit of the fallen angels. Various religious institutions will lose the faith altogether and will lose many souls. Number 12, bad books will abound on the earth, and the spirits of darkness will spread everywhere, a universal laxity towards anything that concerns the service of God. They will have a very great power over nature. There will be churches to serve these spirits. These evil spirits will transport people from one place to another, and even priests, because they will not have cooperated with the good spirit of the gospel, which is a spirit of humility, charity, and zeal for the glory of God. They will raise up the dead. Melanie explains that these so-called resuscitates will assume the likeness of righteous souls who had once lived on earth in order to better deceive people. These so-called resurrected dead will be none other than demons or even the souls of the damned in the guise of those known to be righteous. They will preach another gospel contrary to that of the true Christ Jesus, denying the existence of heaven. All these souls will appear to be united to their bodies. There will be extraordinary prodigies everywhere because the true faith has been extinguished and the false light illumines the world. Woe to the princes of the church who will be busy only to pile riches upon riches, to preserve their authority, and to dominate with pride. Number 13, the vicar of my son will have much to suffer, because for a time the church will be severely persecuted. This will be the time of darkness. The church will undergo a frightful crisis. 14, the holy faith of God will be forgotten. Each individual will want to be his own guide and to be above his fellow men. Civil and ecclesiastical powers will be abolished. All order and justice will be trodden underfoot. Nothing will be seen but homicide, hatred, jealousy, lies, and discord, without love for fatherland or for family. 15. The Holy Father will suffer greatly. I will be with him until the end to receive his sacrifice. 16. The wicked will make several attempts on his life without being able to shorten his days, but neither he nor his successor, ellipsis, will see the triumph of the Church of God. 17. Civil rulers will all have the same design, which will be to abolish and eliminate all religious principles so as to make room for materialism, atheism, spiritism, and all kinds of vices. Number 18. In the year 65, the abomination will be seen in the holy places. In the convents, the flowers of the church will be putrefied, and the demon will establish himself as king of their hearts. May the heads of religious communities beware about the persons they admit, because the demon will apply all his malice to introduce into religious orders persons given over to sin, because disorders and the love of carnal pleasures will be spread all over the earth. 19. France, Italy, Spain, and England will be at war. Blood will flow in the streets. The French will fight against the French, the Italians against the Italians. Then there will be a general war that will be appalling. For a time, God will remember neither France nor Italy, because the gospel of Jesus Christ is no longer known. The wicked will deploy all their malice. There will be killing and mutual massacre, even inside the houses. Subsection, the opening divine intervention. Number 20. At the first stroke of his lightning sword, the mountains and all of nature will tremble with terror, because the lawlessness and the crimes of men will have pierced the vault of heaven. Paris will be burned and Marseille engulfed. Several great cities will be shaken and engulfed by earthquakes. It will be believed that all is lost. Only homicides will be seen. Only the sound of weapons and blasphemy will be heard. The righteous will suffer much. Their prayers, their penance, and their tears will mount to heaven, and all the people of God will ask pardon and mercy, and will ask for my help and intercession. Then Jesus Christ, by an act of his justice and his great mercy for the righteous, will command his angels to put all his enemies to death. Suddenly, all the persecutors of the church of Jesus Christ and all men given to sin will perish, and the earth will become like a desert. Then there will be peace, reconciliation between God and men. Jesus Christ will be served, adored, and glorified. Charity will blossom everywhere. The new kings will be the right arm of the Holy Church, which will be strong, humble, pious, poor, zealous, imitating the virtues of Jesus Christ. The gospel will be preached everywhere, and mankind will make great progress in the faith, because there will be unity among the workers of Jesus Christ, and men will live in the fear of God. Number 21. This peace among men will not last long. 25 years of abundant harvest will make them forget that the sins of men are the cause of all the pains that come upon the earth. Number 22. A forerunner of the Antichrist with his troops of several nations will fight against the true Christ, the only Savior of the world. He will shed much blood and will want to annihilate the worship of God in order to have himself considered as God. Number 23. The earth will be stricken with all sorts of plagues, besides pestilence and famine, which will be widespread. There will be wars until the last war, led by the 10 kings of the Antichrist, who all aim at the same goal, and who will be the only ones ruling the world. Before this happens, there will be a kind of false peace in the world. Thought will be given only to entertainment. The wicked will indulge in all sorts of sins, but the children of the Holy Church, the children of faith, my true imitators, will grow in the love of God and in the virtues which are dearest to me. Blessed are the humble souls guided by the Holy Spirit. I shall fight at their side until they reach the fullness of the age. Number 24. Nature demands vengeance for men, and it trembles with terror in anticipation of what will happen to the earth soiled with crimes. 25. Tremble, earth, and you who profess to serve Jesus Christ, but in your hearts only worship yourselves. Tremble, since God will hand you over to his enemy, because the holy places are places of corruption. Many convents are no longer houses of God, but pastures for Asmodeus and his own. Number 26. During this time, the Antichrist will be born of a Hebrew nun, a false virgin, who will have had communication with the old serpent, the master of impurity. His father will be a bishop. At his birth, he will vomit blasphemies. He will have teeth. In a word, this will be the devil incarnate. He will let out frightful screams. He will perform prodigies. He will feed only on impurities. He will have brothers who, though they are not like him, demons incarnate, will be children of evil. At 12 years old, they will draw attention upon themselves by the brilliant victories they carry off. Soon each of them will be at the head of armies, helped by the legions of hell. 27. The seasons will be changed. The earth will produce only bad fruit. The stars will lose their regular movement. The moon will reflect only a faint reddish light. Water and fire will give to the globe of the earth convulsive movements and horrible earthquakes, which engulf mountains, cities, etc. Melanie's ellipsis. 28. Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. 29. The demons of the air, together with the Antichrist, will perform great prodigies on the earth and in the air, and men will become more and more perverted. God will take care of his faithful servants and men of goodwill. The gospel will be preached everywhere. All the peoples and all the nations will have knowledge of the truth. Subheader: a call to the apostles of the last times, and a declaration of the victory of the faith. Number 30, I address an urgent call to the earth. I call the true disciples of the living God who reigns in heaven. I call the true imitators of Christ made man, the only and true Savior of men. I call my children, my true devotees, those who have offered themselves to me, that I may lead them to my divine Son, those whom I carry in my arms, so to speak, those who have lived by my Spirit. Finally, I call the apostles of the last times, the faithful disciples of Jesus Christ, who have lived in contempt for the world and of themselves, in poverty and humility, in contempt and in silence, in prayer and in mortification, in chastity and in union with God, in suffering and unknown to the world. It is time that they come forth and enlighten the earth. Go and show yourselves as my beloved children. I am with you and in you, provided that the faith be the light which enlightens you in these days of woe. Let your zeal make you as if starved for the glory and honor of Jesus Christ. Children of the light, you few who see, for behold the time of times, the end of ends. It is time that they come forth and enlighten the earth. Go and show yourselves as my beloved children. I am with you and in you, provided that the faith be the light which enlightens you in these days of woe. Let your zeal make you as if starved for the glory and honor of Jesus Christ. Fight, children of the light, you few who see, for behold the time of times, the end of ends. Number 31. The church will be eclipsed. The world will be in consternation. But behold, Enoch and Elijah, filled with the Spirit of God, they will preach with the power of God, and men of good will shall believe in God, and many souls will be comforted. These will make great progress by the power of the Holy Spirit, and will condemn the diabolical errors of the Antichrist. Number 32. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth. There will be bloody wars and famine, plagues and contagious diseases. There will be downpours of an appalling hail of pests, thunders which shake cities, and earthquakes which will swallow up countries. Voices will be heard in the air. Men will beat their heads against the walls. They will call for death, and on the other hand, death will be their torment. Blood will flow on all sides. Who can overcome if God does not shorten the time of trial? By the blood, tears, and prayers of the righteous, God will permit himself to be moved. Enoch and Elijah will be put to death. Pagan Rome will disappear. The fire of heaven will fall and consume 3 cities. The whole universe will be struck with terror, and many will be led astray because they had not adored the true Christ living among them. It is the time when the sun will darken. Faith alone will live. Number 33. Behold the time. The abyss shows up. Behold the king of the kings of darkness. Behold the beast with its subjects, calling itself the Savior of the world. He will rise with pride into the air in order to attain heaven. He will be suffocated by the breath of St. Michael the archangel. He will fall, and the earth, which for 3 days had been in continuous convulsions, will open its bosom full of fire. He will be plunged forever with his subjects into the eternal chasms of hell. Then water and fire will purify the earth and consume all the works of men's pride, and all will be renewed. God will be served and glorified. Section 4 of this last 8th version, the rule and the last warnings. After she had given me, also in French, the rule of this new religious order, the Holy Virgin continued her speech in the same manner. If they convert, the stones and rocks will change into wheat, and potatoes will be found sown in the earth. Do you say your prayers well, my children? We both replied, Not very well, Madame. Oh, my children, you must say them well, evening and morning. When you can't do better, say an Our Father and a Hail Mary, and when you have the time to do better, say more. Only a few old women go to Mass. The others work on Sunday in the summer. In the winter, when they are at a loose end, they go only to Mass to make fun of religion. During Lent, they go to the butchers like dogs. Have you ever seen spoiled wheat, my children? We both answered, "Oh no, madame." The Holy Virgin turned to Maximin, saying, "But you, my child, you must have seen some once near Quan with your father. The farmer said to your father, 'Come and see how my wheat has gone bad.' You went to see. Your father took 2 or 3 ears in his hand, rubbed them, and they fell to dust. Then on your way back, when you were no more than half an hour away from Kor, your father gave you a piece of bread and said, 'Here, my child, eat this year, for I don't know who will be eating next year if the wheat spoils like that.'" Maximin replied, "It's quite true, madame. I didn't remember." The Most Holy Virgin finished her speech in French. "Well, my children, you will pass this on to all my people." The beautiful lady crossed the stream, and 2 steps away from the stream, without turning herself to us who were following her, because we were attracted so much by her brilliance, and even more so by her kindness, which melted my heart, she repeated to us, "Well, my children, you will pass this on to all my people." Then she walked on up to the place where I had climbed before to look for our cows. Her feet touched only the tips of the grass, and without bending it. Having reached the top of the little hill, the beautiful lady stopped, and I rushed to stand in front of her to look at her closely, to try and determine which path she intended to take, because for me it was over. I had forgotten both my cows and the masters I worked for. I was forever and unconditionally attached to my lady. Yes, I never wanted to leave her. I followed her without any thought but to serve her for the rest of my life. In the presence of my lady, I felt I had forgotten paradise. I thought of nothing more but to serve her in every way possible. I felt I could have done everything she could have asked me to do, for it seemed to me that she had a great deal of power. She looked at me with a tender kindness which drew me to her. I would have thrown myself into her arms with my eyes closed, but she did not give me the time to do so. She rose imperceptibly from the ground to a height of about 1 meter or more, and floating thus in the air momentarily, my beautiful lady looked up to heaven, then down on the earth, to her right and then her left. Then she looked at me with her eyes so sweet, so kind, and so good, that I felt she was drawing me inside her, and my heart seemed to open up to hers. And while my heart was melting in sweet delight, the beautiful face of my good lady began to disappear little by little. It was as if the scintillating light, which was intensifying around the Most Holy Virgin, as to prevent me from seeing her any longer. In this manner, the light took over her body, so that it vanished before my eyes. Or rather, it seemed to me that the body of my lady changed into light while melting away. Then the light, in the shape of a globe, rose gently straight upwards. I cannot say if the intensity of the light diminished while she was rising, or whether the growing distance made me see less and less light as she rose. What I do know is that I remained a long time with my head raised up, staring at the light, which was always moving away and diminishing in volume, until it finally disappeared. I unfastened my gaze from the heavens and looked around. I saw Maximin looking at me, and I said to him, "Memon, that must have been my father's good Lord, or the Holy Virgin, or some other great saint." And Maximin threw his arms into the air and said, "Oh, if only I'd known." Section 5 of this 8th version, the return to the employers who conduct the first inquiry. On that evening of September 19th, we went down a little earlier than usual. When I arrived at my master's farm, I was busy tying up my cows and tidying the stable, and had not yet finished when my mistress came up to me in tears and said, "Why, my child, why didn't you come and tell me what happened on the mountain?" Maximin, not having found his masters at home as they were still working, had come over to mine and reported everything he had seen and heard. I answered, "I did want to tell you, but I wanted to get my work finished first." A moment later, I went inside the house, and my mistress said to me, "Tell me what you saw. The noisy shepherd," the nickname given Maximin by his employer, Pierre Selm, "has told me everything." So I started telling her what had happened, and about halfway in my story, my masters came back from their fields. My mistress, who was weeping at hearing the complaints and warnings of our sweet mother, said, "Ah, you were planning to harvest the wheat tomorrow, Sunday. Beware. Come and hear what happened today to this child and Pierre Selm's shepherd boy." And turning to me, she said, "Repeat everything you have said." I started again, and when I finished, my master said, "It was the Holy Virgin, or else a great saint who has come on behalf of the good God. But it's as if the good God had come himself. We must do what this saint said. How are you going to manage to tell that to all her people?" I answered him, "You tell me what to do, and I will do so." Then looking at his mother, his wife, and his brother, he added, "I'll have to think about that." Then everyone went back to their business. After supper, Maximin and his masters came over to see my masters and to recount what Maximin had told them and to figure out what to do. They said, "It seems to us that it was the Holy Virgin, sent by the good God. The words she spoke make this apparent, and she told them to pass it on to all her people. Perhaps these children will have to travel the world to make it known that everyone must respect the commandments of the good God, lest great miseries come upon us." After a moment's silence, my master said to Maximin and me, "Do you know what you must do, my children? Tomorrow you must get up early, and both of you go to the parish priest and tell him everything you saw and heard. Tell him exactly what happened, and he will tell you what you must do." Subsection, the visit to the pastor. On September 20th, the day after the apparition, I left early in the morning with Maximin. When we reached the presbytery, I knocked on the door. The priest's housekeeper opened the door and asked us what we wanted. I said to her in French, I, who had never spoken French, "We would like to speak to Father." "And what do you want to tell him?" she asked. "We want to tell him, miss, that yesterday we went up to watch over our cows in the mountain of Basis, and after lunch, etc., etc." We recounted a good piece of the Holy Virgin's words. Then the church bell rang. It was the final call for Mass. Father Jacques Perron, the parish priest of LaSalette, who had been listening, flung open his door with a crash. He was in tears and beating his chest. He said to us, "My children, we are lost. God is going to punish us. Oh, good God, it was the Holy Virgin who appeared to you." And he left to offer Holy Mass. We looked at each other and at the housekeeper. Then Maximin said to me, "I'm going off to my father in Corps," and we parted company. As my masters had not told me to return to work immediately after speaking with Father, I saw no harm in going to Mass, and so I went into the church. Mass began, and after the first gospel, Father Jacques Perron turned to the congregation and tried to recount to his parishioners the story of the apparition, which had just taken place the day before on one of their mountains, and he urged them to stop working on Sundays. His voice was broken with sobs, and everyone was very, very moved. After Holy Mass, I went back to my master's house. Mr. Pétard, who is still today the mayor of LaSalette, came to question me about the apparition, and having felt satisfied that I was speaking the truth, he went away convinced. I stayed on in the service of my masters until All Saints' Day. Then I was placed as a boarder with the Sisters of Providence in my hometown of Corps. Section 6, Description of the Virgin. The Most Holy Virgin was tall and well-proportioned. She seemed so light that a mere breath could have stirred her, yet she was motionless and perfectly balanced. Her bearing was majestic, imposing, but not like the nobility of the world. She compelled a respectful fear, but radiating so much love that she drew us to herself. Her gaze was soft and penetrating. Her eyes seemed to speak to mine, but the conversation came from a profound and vivid feeling of love for the ravishing beauty which was liquefying me. The softness of her gaze, her air of incomprehensible kindness, made me understand and feel that she was drawing me to her because she wanted to give herself. It was an expression of love which cannot be expressed with the language of the flesh, nor with the letters of the alphabet. The clothing of the Holy Virgin was silvery white and shone with brilliance. It was quite intangible, composed of light and glory, shimmering and scintillating. There is no expression nor comparison to be found on earth. The Holy Virgin was all beauty and all love. The sight of her made me long to be dissolved into her. In her finery as in her person, everything breathed the majesty, the splendor, the magnificence of an incomparable queen. She seemed as white, immaculate, crystalline, dazzling, celestial, fresh, and new like a virgin. It seemed that the word love escaped from her silvery and pure lips. She appeared to me like a good mother, full of kindness, amiability, love for us, full of compassion and mercy. The crown of roses that she wore on her head was so beautiful, so brilliant, that it defies all imagination. The roses of many colors were not from the earth. It was a floral bouquet that surrounded the head of the Most Holy Virgin in the form of a crown. But the roses kept changing and replacing each other, and then from the heart of each rose there emanated a beautiful, captivating light, which gave the roses a shimmering beauty. From the crown of roses there issued something like branches of gold and a host of other small flowers mixed with diamonds. The whole thing formed a most beautiful tiara, which alone shone brighter than our earth's sun. The Holy Virgin had a very pretty cross hanging from her neck. This cross seemed golden. I say golden rather than gold-plated, for I have sometimes seen objects which were golden, with varying shades of gold, which had a much more beautiful effect on my eyes than simple gold plate. On this shining, beautiful cross there was a Christ. It was our Lord on the cross. Towards each end of the cross beam there was a hammer, and at the other side a pair of pliers. The Christ was flesh-colored, but he shone luminously. The light that shone forth from his whole body seemed like brightly shining darts, which pierced my heart with the desire to melt into him. At times the Christ appeared to be dead. His head bent forward, and his body seemed to give way, as if about to fall, had he not been held back by the nails which held him to the cross. I had a deep compassion for him, but I would have liked to tell the whole world about his unknown love and to infuse into the souls of mortal men the most heartfelt love and most lively gratitude towards a God who had no need whatsoever of us to be everything he is, was, and ever shall be. And yet, O love incomprehensible to man, he made himself man and wanted to die, yes, dies, so as to better imprint in our souls and in our memory the passionate love he has for us. Oh, how wretched am I to find myself so poor in my expression of the love of our good Savior for us. But in another way, how happy we are to be able to feel more deeply that which we cannot express. At other times, the Christ appeared to be alive. His head was upright, his eyes open, and he seemed to be on the cross of his own will. At times, too, he appeared to speak. He seemed to show that he was on the cross for our sake, out of love for us, to draw us to his love, and that he always has more love to give us, that his love at the beginning and in the year 33 is the same today and will be forever. The Holy Virgin was crying almost the whole time she was speaking to me. Her tears flowed gently, one by one, down to her knees. Then, like sparks of light, they disappeared. They were glittering and full of love. I wanted to comfort her and stop her tears, but it seemed to me that she needed the tears to better show her love, forgotten by men. I would have liked to have thrown myself into her arms and say to her, "My kind mother, do not cry. I want to love you for all the people in the world." But she seemed to be saying to me, "There are so many who do not know me." I was in between death and life, on the one hand seeing so much love, so much desire to be loved, and on the other so much coldness and indifference. Melanie has ellipsis here. O my mother, most beautiful and lovable, heart of my heart. The tears of our tender mother, far from diminishing her air of majesty, of a queen and a mistress, seemed on the contrary to embellish her, to make her more beautiful, more powerful, more loving, more maternal, more ravishing. I would have gladly lapped up her tears, which made my heart burst with compassion and love. Is it possible to see a mother cry, and such a mother, without doing everything imaginable to console her and change her grief into joy? O mother, more than good, you have been formed of all the prerogatives of which God is capable. You have seemingly exhausted the power of God. You are good, and then good from the goodness of God himself. God has magnified himself by making you his terrestrial and celestial masterpiece. The Most Holy Virgin had a yellow pinafore. What am I saying, yellow? She had a pinafore more brilliant than several suns put together. It was not of tangible material, but composed of glory, and this glory was scintillating and ravishingly beautiful. Everything about the Blessed Virgin moved me deeply and inspired me to adore and love my Jesus in all phases of his earthly life. The Most Holy Virgin had 2 chains, one a little wider than the other. From the narrower one hung the cross, which I mentioned earlier. These chains, since they must be given the name of chains, were like rays of brightly shining glory, sparkling and dazzling. Her shoes, since they must be called shoes, were white, but a silvery, brilliant white. There were roses around them. These roses were dazzlingly beautiful, and from the heart of each rose there shone forth a flame of very beautiful and pleasing light. On her shoes there was a buckle of gold, not the gold of this earth, but rather the gold of paradise. The sight of the Holy Virgin was itself a perfect paradise. She had within her all that could satisfy, for the earth was forgotten. The Holy Virgin was surrounded by 2 lights. The first light, closer to the Most Holy Virgin, reached as far as us. It shone with a radiance, both beautiful and sparkling. The second light extended a little farther around the beautiful lady, and we were situated within that light. It was motionless, that is, it did not shimmer, yet much more brilliant than our poor earthly sun. All this light did not hurt or tire the eyes in any way. In addition to all these lights, all that splendor, there were also beams of light, or rays of light, emanating from the body of the Most Holy Virgin, from her clothes, and from everywhere. The voice of the beautiful lady was sweet. It was enchanting, ravishing, warming to the heart. It satisfied, smoothing every obstacle. It calmed and softened. It seemed to me that I would never want to cease drinking in her beautiful voice, and my heart seemed to dance and leap towards her, so as to dissolve into her. The eyes of the most beautiful Virgin, our tender mother, cannot be described in human language. To speak of them, one would need a seraph. You would need more than that. You would need the language of God himself, of the God who formed the Immaculate Virgin, the masterpiece of his omnipotence. The eyes of the majestic Mary appeared thousands upon thousands of times more beautiful than the rarest diamonds or the most sought-after precious stones. They shone like 2 suns, but they were soft, softness itself, as clear as a mirror. In her eyes you could see paradise. They drew one towards her, as if she wanted to give herself and bring you to her. The more I looked, the more I wanted to see her. The more I saw, the more I loved her, and I loved her with all my might. The eyes of the beautiful Immaculate were like the door of God, through which one could see all that can intoxicate the soul. When my eyes met those of the Mother of God, I felt within myself a joyous upheaval of love and a solemn declaration that I loved her and was melting with love. As we looked at each other, our eyes spoke to each other in their fashion, and I loved her so much that I could have kissed her between those eyes, which touched my soul and seemed to draw it towards them and cause it to dissolve into hers. Her eyes caused a gentle tremor in my whole being. I feared to make the least movement that might cause her the slightest displeasure. Just the sight of the eyes of the purest of virgins would have been enough to make the heaven of a blessed soul, enough to satisfy the soul with the will of the Most High amid the events which occur in the course of mortal life, enough to cause the soul to offer uninterrupted acts of praise, thanksgiving, reparation, and of expiation. Just this sight alone concentrates the soul on God and makes the soul dead to earthly things, even the things which had seemed most important, but are now as mere child's play. Such a soul only desires conversation about God and of all that concerns his glory. Sin is the only evil she sees on earth. She will die of grief unless God sustains her. Amen. Given at Castellamare, the 21st of November, 1878, signed Mary of the Cross, victim of Jesus, born Melanie Calvet, shepherdess of LaSalette. The nihil obstat and imprimatur, Given at Lecce from the Bishop's Tribunal, November 15th, 1879, Feast of the Poor Souls. This is Salvatore Luigi Zola, Bishop of Lecce, Italy. His vicar general was the Archpriest Carmelo Cosmas, who died in 1886.